I have some thoughts about interstar actualization and how to get sort of like a good foothold into it when you're coming from a place of PTSD, c-ptsd, RTS. It's a lot about pre-work rather than the actual interstar actualization. The kind of stuff like I'm going to talk about, it's not something that I sort of discovered overnight. This comes from a lot of years of thinking and contemplating and reading books and things like that. Thinking about thoughts is very good. Thinking about your thoughts to problem solve, that's all evolution. We are self-solving puzzle. Act of solving is where the evolution happens. It's where we grow. Puzzles are tricky, right? That's why they're puzzles. I mean, if it was just easy to put it all together and then bang, boom, we'd be flying around the room, as I like to say. The fly around the room thing is what I refer to people who think that they're going to find a shortcut in hyperianism and within 2 weeks they're going to be flying around the room, defying gravity, floating around. So anyways, yes, puzzles can be very tricky. This holos is an illusion, and how it affects us is serious. Just because it's not real doesn't mean it's not serious. As children, we really don't have a sense of reasoning. We are rather impulsive, and we absorb all the information from the holos around us in our own reality tunnel that was provided for us by influencers. Depending on whose reality tunnel we are influenced by, it affects our development. It could provide a lot of extra challenging circumstances, and it could cause a lot of suffering. Within ourselves, we have the ego, the id, and the superego. The superego is what you would call the other people part of your brain. It's the part of your brain that was influenced and shaped by your reality tunnel. That, as a child, you really don't have any choice over. Your influencers kind of provide that to you. Our super ego is like our compass. It's a thing that says, don't pick up a turd off the ground and eat it. We learn that from other people in our lives. We should. We learn from other people to look both ways before we cross the street. That's really important. That's healthy. There is a healthy superego. And these are things we should learn from our immediate influencers. Our immediate influencers are like our parents, our grandparents, our family, our teachers, our even our friends, or just really primarily anybody that as a child you would look to how to gauge your response to things, or like how you should treat situations or approach situations. God is a person in your life as a child if you grew up religiously. When you're raised under Abrahamic-based religions, and even though there's no actual voice of God, our brains will make that up and fill that space and construct that voice very convincingly. So it's as if it's real. Crazy religious parents, parents that aren't stable, people raising you that are got crazy, insane ideas, and they just don't know what's what, and maybe they're ugly people, and by ugly I mean like they're physically abusive. This superego we have, it manifests. It's like an ugly, fractured inner influencer, an inner critic, not a healthy inner critic, or judge, or compass, or the thing that we're supposed to have. It's just really this distorted superego is quite mad. And the key right there is to start thinking about your superego in terms of like what the voice sounds like. When an inner critic, when your harsh inner critic steps up and says something like, hey, you're fucking up, you need to do something this way. Does it say it just like that? Like, how is the language of that voice? Like, does it whisper? Does it yell? Does it seethe? Really malevolent? Is it very passive? And how do you respond to it? In cases with the neglect, like in religious trauma syndrome, absence of the voice of God, in which we are instilled to look to through feelings as a vital source for building a very important part of ourselves. As children, you were told, here's God, you should look towards God, but that's not a real voice. So you have to fill that in with something. But the way God is presented, like they're very judgmental, overbearing parent too. And it doesn't help when faith-based groups sort of drive it into you that you're not enough, or you're not doing enough if you're not receiving the answers you want, if you're praying to God for guidance, if you're praying to God to know what to do. Even if it's not like outright said, if you don't receive answers from God, you're not enough. There's always the tone that you need to do more in order to receive that divine revelation. Well, for a rational mind, even like if young, like even if you have some like good basic reasoning within you. You're told to expect to have faith. Then you never actually receive that. There's no voice. But then you fill it in with something. You see where I'm going with that? There's a presence there that you told is supposed to be there, and you're supposed to interact with it, but it doesn't really interact with you. So what are you actually interacting with? Yourself. But you've created it in your head as something else. An entity. A being that's been groomed into your head. Having the divine promise from God has a plan for you, even if it sucks. That's taken away. It's so easy to understand that there's no God, all of that stuff. Okay, let's get rid of the religion, all that. You doubt it all, you get it, there's no external God. But what happened to that space in your head? That's kind of like where the religious part of the damage for me happened a lot. There was this thing that I was very encouraged to expect, this presence, this God, this thing that was going to help me. And they had a plan for me. They had a purpose for me. Even if I didn't understand it, I just had to keep believing. And when that really ran its course and I felt deceived by that, that really hits hard. But that doesn't go away. You have to fill that with something else. Well, in Hyperianism, we would like you to fill it with yourself. Here's where someone could potentially run into problems because you had it so instilled to you that there's a divine plan. And it's so easy to take Hyperianism and put it into that template. Oh, I'm supposed to put me in there. Perfect. Done. Is it though? Have you considered the template that you're taking Hyperion pieces and putting them in and filling these religious holes? You're a monad, and if you become aware and you can seize your own personal destiny and you can overcome your personal challenges and you can live Abraxianly and rise up for yourself and for the collective, that can so easily be taken for an expectation that you put on yourself that if it's missed, if you don't fulfill this expectation, that could hurt. The superego, in this sense, can dominate the id and the ego. It can bully your shadow content. If you don't think about that voice, this distorted superego can create this ideal self that you're supposed to fulfill. But if you don't really sit and examine what that ideal self is supposed to be, you could unknowingly be carrying on that same template, that same abusive template, and applying it to yourself, expecting yourself to fly around the room immediately in 2 weeks. This whole thing highlights why you honestly just should not even attempt working on your power self at all. Because this nasty distorted superego that manifests as a really harsh inner critic, that could really domineer that process and your shadow work as well. Some monads get into reality tunnels that just fucking suck. It's not planned. It's not a divine purpose. One of the hard things, especially when you're dealing with abuse or pain and stuff, with religion on top of it, they almost make you want to like it. Like you should enjoy that you've received this torment and torture for people because this is God's plan. And there's a point to all this. You just don't know what it is. That mentality I hate with a passion. When we say embrace the struggle in Hyperianism, that definitely does not mean embrace and love the fact that you were treated like crap. In some cases, there's nothing to learn from it. Sometimes you experience abuse from somebody and heartbreak and torture and all this stuff, and there's no point to it. Like, you develop more resilience. Great. That's not exactly going to help you evolve in the long run. It's definitely a good tool to put in your arsenal of the mind war. Resilience is wonderful. I am all about resilience. It's sometimes all you can do is be resilient. I was thinking about this, and then I came across some reading, and I saw the question, what does your inner harsh, crazy, distorted inner critic sound like? Like, what kind of terms does it use? So I thought about it. And then I had a shocking moment where I realized that with my weird-ass, distorted superego, harsh critic that was instilled to me growing up with abusive parents and shit, with heavy religious-ass overtones, I had this moment where I realized it speaks to me in sentences like, you need to stop fucking up, you need to do this, you fucked up here, what the fuck are you doing, get over here and do this, you need to do that. Like with my art, it says, like, you need to fucking market more, you need to get off your ass, and you need to do this, that, but like in a way that's like so bad. Or like if I get in a fight with a friend or family, or I have some conflict with somebody I love, it loves to tell me that I'm shit, it's all my fault. Like, if I would just shut the fuck up, then people wouldn't be upset with me. This thing I'm talking about, okay, here's an important thing to think about, though. This isn't intelligent. This super ego thing that gets instilled in us, like this voice, even the the absence of voice of God, like this thing, it's not intelligent. It has no fucking clue what we're doing right now in your life, in your development, in your inner self-actualization. These are like broken records. These are broken records that play, that were instilled to us as kids. All right, so I'm trying to accomplish my inner self-actualization. My superego has a lovely array and assortment of songs that it plays telling me that I fucking suck and that I'm a piece of shit, that I deserve people to hate me, that I deserve to be neglected and left alone in the dark. It's not intelligent. And that moment where I'm like, here's this thing in my head that loves to make me think all sorts of horrible thoughts. It loves that I over-catastrophize everything. It loves that I'm super negative. It's speaking to me in sentences like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I'm thinking, holy shit, that's not even me. And then I had to think, like, where did that come from? And that was a lot of thought. I think a lot of it had to do with the way in which my parents treated me. A lot of it, I think, has to do with trying to fill in that hole in that space where God should have been. And I had to take pieces from what my parents are saying and sort of assemble that God thing up with portions of that, portions of me, portions of things all around me. And I came to a point where I got rid of all that. I didn't realize there was a hole. There's a big portion of discovering this sort of nasty superego problem that makes me extremely sad. In a lot of ways, it makes me feel a lot more compassionate towards myself. And in many more ways, it makes me realize that I have a lot of responsibility now to heal. I don't want you to think of Ad Astra struggling to the stars, embracing the pain as accepting and loving the fact that you were tortured. No, it's more of like, you need to embrace the healing process, because the healing process is going to be painful. But here's the thing, you actually get something out of the healing process. We get something out of the healing process. We don't get anything out of the fucking torture and shit we went through. Think about your superego. Think about your inner critic more specifically. I think not everyone's going to be like me, but I'm pretty sure you guys understand at this point in your lives, or at least I hope, that not everybody is affected by the holos in the same way. It's just a matter of how much and where. Trauma, depression, terrible things. The holos is a terrible place. So think about it. Think about that. Think about the spirit. And think about if you've grown up in a really religious situation and you're now like Hyperion, or you've gotten rid of that concept of God, think about where that voice of God went. And I don't mean actual God. I mean like the voice you built up in your head. Like, is that still there? Did that just kind of morph into something else? For me, my plan is I'm going to continue to observe this really harsh, nasty inner critic. For me, I don't want to get rid of it, not destroy it. Honestly, what the best thing to be done here is to slap a leash on it and put it to work. Because this crazy fucking nasty inner critic can do some helpful things for me, even if it's not pleasant. For instance, get my ass out of bed and losing all that fucking weight I lost. So it's good for that. But, when it's not checked and it's so fucking domineering over it, everything just saturated in everything, even qualities that seem good, it just hijacks it, and it just makes it no fun. Obviously, I'm not a sociopath. That's not what I'm saying. But that harsh inner critic, I'm using that word to describe it because it really just loves to make me miserable. I am by default a piece of crap that deserves to be used unless I prove otherwise every single fucking day. That's what it likes to tell me. It's got a lovely dance mix on repeat, and it has no idea what I'm doing right now in my life. Whatever it is I tackle, it just brings it up. Oh, here's this. Oh, you suck. Oh, yep. Fuck you. So I hope it helps. I hope this helps. I hope me sharing what I'm going through helps. Because healing is hard. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me today. Have a fabulous week. And as always, stay awake out there, dreamers. FK out.